All right, guys, gals, it's season 6, and this is episode 1. I can't believe that we're on our 6th year of the podcast. I wish we had like streamers and balloons and all that, but instead of that, I've actually, I've actually started in the last couple seasons having like legendary legacy, like just, a little bit higher in the stratosphere guests to kick us off. Boo Schexnader has been one in the past. Dan Paff has been one in the past. And this year, well, we've got Sprint Season 2 superstar right here. Help me welcome good friend, love her to death. She does an amazing job. I can't wait to share her journey with you. Help me welcome the wise, the wonderful Miss Tonja Buford-Bailey. Tonja, how are you?
Hello. Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing
Hi.
great. Probably not as good as you. What a year. Holy cow.
Good year. Good year. Yep.
Dude.
Yep. It was a great year, actually.
Yeah, we'll get into that. I'm just, we got to know each other. We'll talk about this as part of your journey here at University of Illinois, and instantly became a fan of you. Not only because what a great coach you are, but what a great person you are. And I even got to meet and know your family a little bit. So
Yep.
just to see the steps along the way, man, it's really cool to be on the sideline and being a fan of you, Tanja. It's fun to
Thanks.
see.
Thanks. Yeah, I sort of consider Chambana my hometown. I lived there a lot of years. My
Mhm.
kids grew up there. I went to school there. I coached
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
So really, really strong connection there to
yeah.
Champaign,
Yeah.
Urbana.
And we lived in the same neighborhood, I think, at one point too,
Yeah, at
right?
one point. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that
Yep,
because I
yep,
remember going by. It's like that was our house. Yeah, yeah, I
yep.
love that. All right, well,
Yep.
so for Tanja here, so you have a little bit of a unique journey here in that you were a superstar athlete as well. It's interesting to see you coaching superstar athletes when wasn't that long ago. Let's be real, that you were on that side going through those workouts, having the goals of making it to the Olympics and medals and things like that. Three-time Olympics, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Dude, first of
I
all,
feel like it was a long time ago
I was
because I'm
trying. I,
turning 54 on Friday. So
I,
I feel like it was a long time ago.
I was trying to be nice, Tanja. I was trying to be
I know,
nice.
I
I was trying
know.
to be
You don't
nice.
have to be nice. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, three Olympics. I have to, that's a big shout out because I have such high esteem for like if you make an Olympic team, one Olympic, you are in a
Right,
fraternity
right.
of small numbers. You make two, holy cow! I mean, that's legacy. Like you automatically have legacy in our sport for the sport and specifically for your event. Three, I mean
Yeah.
it's got to be, I'm gonna say a handful, and I mean that, it can't be 100 Americans that have made three teams. It has to be under 100. So I mean,
And the sport of track, probably not that
yeah,
many.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
probably other if you combine other sports.
yeah.
But
Take out those
yeah, it
gymnastics and
actually
stuff.
is really, really hard. And I tell you what, even though I made three teams, I still stress how hard it is as a coach. I stress how hard it is to my athletes,
Hmm.
how hard it is to make the team.
Yeah,
Even if I've been around the sport for so long, I've seen people doing really well all year. And I mean medal contender well and
hmm,
don't make the team.
yeah,
So just because our trials are something that is just unimaginable
right,
for our sport, just to get through the mental wrangling that you have to uh, do to get through our trials and through
yeah,
the rounds, and not just from the physical standpoint, but the mental standpoint, and everything has to line up right, and it has to
right,
be on that day at that
yeah,
time. You know what I mean?
mm,
But credit to my coach, he always made that clear to me.
mm,
So I never cared about, if I ran a race earlier that year that didn't go well. Who cares?
mm,
Right? And so I try to, get my athletes to understand so what this meet didn't go well. Who cares? As long as the most important one of the year goes well, right?
right,
Because you can't, if you listen to Gabby's interview right after the race, and she was like, I think Lewis Johnson was asking her about the Olympics, and she was like, this is at the trials, and she was like, well, I had to make it through this because there is no Olympics if I don't make it through this day,
right,
right? So those are things that I'm proud of myself as a coach,
mm,
when I get my athletes to understand those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And of course, they can look at me and go, "You made 3 Olympic teams, it must be easy," you know? And I'm like, no, 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 no. Let me tell you, everything has to be lined up. And even if it does, even if it isn't all lined up, sometimes you got to pull a rabbit out of a hat in other ways, which is what I did in 2000. I was not at my best. I was coming back from having my son. I was having a lot of Achilles issues. And so I wasn't really in a position at all where I ever should have been on the Olympic team. But I used my experience and my know-how of getting through that meet to make it work. So, yeah.
Well, I don't want to focus too much on your athletic side. We're going to start working on the coaching side here. But I do have, for someone who had such a long career and such a successful career, I'm curious, what did you learn? Like, what was your most learning aspect of it? Whether it was a race or a result or a practice, and kind of maybe more importantly, tying it back into you now being coach Buford-Bailey, not just athlete. How do you translate that, communicate that into your athletes today?
Mm-hmm. Well, everything that I do as a coach is a foundation of me being an athlete. So it's always tied together, thankfully, because I have that experience. There are so many things, but the one thing, if I had to say one, is that they always tell you when you're young and you're coming up that, it doesn't matter if you win or lose, it's how you play the game, or those kind of quotes, or, it's just not true. Okay. And that's when I learned that little lesson. And that was in 95 when we went under the world record and I lost. There is a huge difference between the winner and the loser, right. Even if it's by that much. I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm just saying that there is. So the great thing about that is that it only intensified my desire to want to win, right? Which means I continue to work harder, even though you're at the top every practice, and you just understanding how a fraction of a second in our sport can make a big difference, and everything that you're doing off the track can alter that fraction of a second, right? So that's it.
I said I wasn't going to ask more than one question, but now you said something that made me think about it. Did you say you went under the world record but didn't win the race?
Right.
How does that feel? I mean, that seems crazy because, in our sport, there's a hierarchy when we get to the very top of like Olympics, right? That's a big deal. Next up is if you're a medalist, like that's cool that you're an Olympian, but oh my gosh, you're a medalist, gold medal. And then we still, for right or wrong, world record, there's always these arguments. Would you rather set the world record or win the gold medal? But world record, like that's just another infamy. How does I like that kind of actually blows my mind that you do what, as little kids, maybe we always think about doing, set the world record, but you didn't win the race. That seems like a unbelievable, very steep emotional roller coaster.
It is some mental gymnastics. And I'm going to answer this, and then we're going to make sure we don't stay on this topic. First of all, going into that race, I had no idea I could lose. I had tricked myself. By the time I was under the stadium before we went out to the track, no one on earth could have told me I was going to lose. So that was already like embedded in my mind. Not that I was in this superior position. I just had convinced myself that this was my time and I was going to win no matter what, right? So when I realized I didn't win, I was shocked. Right? So that was the first part. And then Kim came over to me and she said, "Look," and she showed me the board that had the world record. And I was like, oh, but I was still like, I can't believe
lost.
I win. I can't believe the race is over and I didn't win. And then she said, come with me, do the victory lap with me, because we did this together. And it was great. Then yeah, I was really traumatized just that I didn't win. I wasn't and then after I kind of settled in for a minute, I was like, oh, that was pretty fantastic. So you have to give yourself a little bit of grace. But if you are a really highly competitive athlete with that kind of mindset, the shock of losing is the first thing that happens before you start to conceptualize everything else. And then after I started becoming the second place person and the non-world record holder who broke the world record, but I don't get the world record and all of that, then it becomes more of a disappointing. But again, I don't ever want to, because I really feel like I'm glad I was a part of that. It was an amazing race. It's historic. And I don't have any real negative thoughts about it. But other than there is this mental gymnastics that happens. And to answer your question, it's definitely, in my opinion, I'd rather be an Olympic champion than a world record holder.
Okay, yeah.
Because again, now Kim Batten's not the world record holder anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, it was still for a very, very long time. But they go away. They can be, it's always going to be in the record books, but it doesn't stand forever most of the time. Yeah. So, records are fine. And I will say, I never, ever ran a race to break a record. So I was never thinking, I'm trying to run fast to break the record, which I think always causes you not to run as fast as you want to run. And there's many of examples of that. So what I always tell my athletes is try to convince yourself in a realistic way, not delusional, in a realistic way that you are capable of winning every single race that you run in, if you really are capable, right? But you have to have that mentality.
I appreciate you sharing that. It's an experience that I'll never have. I was the fifth leg of our 4x4. So, I don't really have a shot, ever had a shot to do that.
You would have had a shot if someone got injured or something. There was a shot.
They were very healthy. They were very healthy people for some reason.
Didn't get your chance, but okay.
Tonja, let's talk about, so we're going to focus on the coaches you had in your life growing up through as an athlete, and then we'll focus on, so how did you switch and become coach? Was that always the plan? And then we'll talk about your coaching career, which is quite fascinating. So let's start with, I assume maybe high school. Is that high school where you started track?
Oh, I started with Harold Lefty Martin at Northwest Track Club in Dayton, Ohio. He is a legendary club coach, LaVonna Martin, Floriel's dad. So I grew up in that program when I was 8. And I was with him all the way through meeting Gary Winkler. So I actually have had two coaches in my entire, well, of course I had middle school and high school coaches at my school, but those were my two coaches. So I had a coach from 8 to 18. And then from 18 until, I still call Gary my coach. So, so that's why I feel like, with athletes, if you find if you really have a loyalty to your coach, good or bad, ups and downs, then I think you'll have actually a more fulfilling career. I see these athletes running back and forth, trying to find the magic bullet. And it's like, listen, in life with anything, I've been married 29 years. With anything, you're going to have times where you have to just figure things out. And so people don't want to do that. They want to, I didn't run well, or this year didn't go the way I wanted to. Let me go find something else, right? Instead of taking full accountability for, how things are going and where you want them to go, right? So for me, I never, ever question anything that once you start doing that, once you notice yourself as an athlete, start saying, well, why are we doing this in the weight room? Or didn't we do this last week? Or explain to me why, what is the philosophy of what? I can never imagine me asking my coach, explain to me why you came up with this. If that's the case, I just coach myself. Why? Athletes don't need to have input in how they're being coached. If they trust, respect, and have loyalty to their coach. If not, find that person that you do have that with and stop asking questions. I know a lot of people don't like to hear that. And I know people like to say athletes should be engaged. No, let the coach do their job so that if it doesn't go the way you want it to go, you can actually say, hey, coach, what's up? Or the coach can say, I did something wrong and I got to figure out what's going on here, right? But if everybody has their hands in it and social media and your friends and other coaches whispering in your ear, then you're never going to get to the root of the problem.
Right. I agree. It's kind of summation what you just said there is consistency is key. And if you're hopping from different program to different program, well, you never get consistency. I agree with that. So
Right.
let's start with this first block, this 8 through 18. I love what you just said there. And I think there's probably a lot of people listening and shaking their head and things like that. But an 8-year-old doesn't know that. Maybe a 17-year-old doesn't know that, but maybe a 17-year-old who's been with the same coach starts at least figuring that out. Where does that come from? Was there a parent influence of like, no, you're staying with this coach, or we've committed, or you're committed? Like,
Well, my
you're
mother is a
14
very
years old. You don't even know what you want to wear the next day. How in the world do you know that I should be staying with the same coach?
My mother is a very loyal person, and if my mother liked him, I like him,
Mm-hmm.
right? But also, they treated me like family, and they took care of me because we grew up really poor, me and my sister, and we didn't even have money for to go to these hotels and travel, and then and Mr. Martin took care of us. He made sure that every meet that I went to or that I wanted to go to or needed to go to, that he was going to make sure I could make it, right? Whether or not my mom could afford it or not. When I was in middle school and high school, I would get bused to the school in their community, and I would walk to their house after school every day. So I was with Mrs. Martin and the LeBrin, which is their other daughter, and so like I was a family to them, right? So again, like that's that loyalty that was far outside of just what was going on the track. So really at that age, it was more than just the sport, right? It was a community and a family environment for me. So yeah.
Assuming you were I know you became a pretty good athlete. Assuming you were a pretty good athlete growing up through middle school and high school, did you play other sports? And if so, why?
Basketball.
Yeah.
I played basketball. And then eventually Mr. Martin was like, so when I went to high school, he was like, you can't play basketball.
Is that
And
right?
Like, and he was like, nope, because you get injured. We're trying to get scholarship. And he just really, I wanted to play basketball so bad. And the basketball coach at my high school would be like trying to talk me into it. And I would ask, and he'd be like, nope. Total control over what I was doing.
Okay.
And, that was, I back where now it's really specialized, and it wasn't as specialized back then, but he kind of knew that was going to be my path. I mean, I'm sure if I looked like I was going to be a WNBA style person, maybe, but
right.
No.
Yeah.
I couldn't dribble or shoot. Now defense and rebounds, that was me.
That's it. That's
Okay?
it. You
Don't
were the
dribble the
you were
ball,
the
Buford. Don't dribble the ball.
you would have been the Dennis Rodman.
I could do a layup. I was the Dennis Rodman. I was gonna get rebound. I was gonna be elbowing some girls, but that was about it. Yeah. So he was just like, it's not worth it. But it worked out because I was also doing club track stuff. I ran in Illinois when I was in high school. I went to an Illinois meet, and I would go to Indiana and go to indoor meets and stuff when I was running in high school. So I was still just doing stuff with my club coach while I was in high school.
So very focused towards collegiate scholarship. Talk to us about that process. Why did you choose University of Illinois? And so there's kind of two paths when you're thinking about picking a school, right? One is, okay, where am I going to run and who's going to be my coach? But also, like, what am I going to major in? What is my career going to be? So as you're going to look into colleges, why Illinois and Gary? And then academically, what were you thinking about professionally? Like what, a teacher, a doctor, a business owner? Talk to us about that.
All about the coach. Okay. But I will say, so one day, okay, like I told you, low income, my mom worked 2 jobs by herself, 6 kids. So I didn't have anybody checking my homework or forcing me to study. And I was always really smart. And so I could just do the work, but I wasn't managing it well. Like I wasn't turning in homework. I wasn't studying. I was trying to wing it with tests and stuff because I knew I was smart. So one day the counselor called me in and said, we have like thousands of letters, all these letters from these schools, but you need to pick a junior college. And I was like, pick a junior college? What? And I was like, that is one thing I will tell you that my club coach never did was check my grades. And I think he just assumed that I had good grades because I had really, really good grades in elementary school. I got like straight A's in elementary school. But I was struggling in high school. I had a sister, she passed away in 2019 and she was diagnosed with muscular dystrophy. So the family was kind of struggling there. And my mom was, pretty depressed and stuff. So we was just having a hard time, the family was. And so my grades slipped, right? And then I was like, I'm not going to a junior high college. I'm #1 in the nation. What are you talking about? And so then she was telling me back then it was just this regular 2.0 or a 700 on the SAT. It was not the sliding scale or anything like that. Right. I didn't have a 2.0. I had like a 1.8 or something like that. I didn't even know. Right? I was like, what? And so I didn't even realize that there was classes that I failed and didn't do well in it. I never even saw my report card. Wow. Okay. So
Tonja, this blows me away a little bit because I know of you as a very smart and capable person.
I'm about to tell you how,
my assumption is like, oh, she's a 3.5. What?
I'm about to tell you how I turned this whole thing out. Now, this is one semester before the end of my senior year. This is December, going into one semester left. So I looked straight in that counselor's eye, which now that I look at it, I'm like, why, how did the counselors let me get in this,
right?
Actually, I got a D in geometry, and geometry my track coach, and I'm not ashamed to say this. My track coach was my geometry teacher. And I bet you I only got the D because I was on the track team. That was good. So anyway, I looked straight across to the counselor and I'm like, well, what do I have to do to make this a 2.0? And she was like, it's impossible. And I was like, I cannot go to a G. It's just, I can't go to a G. You don't understand what we're doing here. So, so I'm like, nothing's impossible. What do you mean it's impossible? And she, well, you'd have to get straight A's. So I was like, okay, ma'am, thank you. And I left there like, all right, gonna get straight A's. So I was in the French. I loved French. And so I was taking French and I was really close to my French teacher. And she said, if you become president of the French club and you do all this extra work and plan all these events and do the fundraising, then I'll give you and you get an A, I will bump it up to a H, which is an honors, and you get extra credits for it. So I actually got A's in every class, history, algebra 2, I got an honors in French, social sciences, I got an A in every single thing and an H. And I ended up with like a 2.2.
Dude.
I graduated.
Which that doesn't surprise me because obviously the knowledge, the ability to have knowledge was there. The importance wasn't just there for many reasons. I'm no judgment. Like there's many reasons why someone wasn't saying, "Hey, you got some skills here. We need to do this academically as well." So,
and my French teacher was like, "Come to class come to my room every day after class and study. Like if you have a history test, study it. Like look it over, get the stuff." And I was like hustling and working and I was like, oh man, I'm taking these tests and I know every answer. Man, I really wish I had known this. I'm like, I know this is so easy. I have a really good photographic memory. I'm like studying all these wars and I'm like, man, and becoming interesting in it and going in there and knocking the test out, getting straight A's, killed it. So going into college, I was like, oh, I just got to take a little time to study. But I will tell you, I got involved in this program in high school. And it was an outreach program. And we would go to elementary schools and read to the kids. I love reading. I'm a crazy book person. And so we were reading to the kids. And I remember we went to one where my little brother he was in elementary school at the time. And I saw him and I was like, you better be good. So brilliant. I mean, this boy is brilliant. Like my dad, like photographic memory, never studied a day in his life, get A's. And I started like doing this with these kids and I said, I really like this. I think I want to be a teacher.
Yeah. Right.
And so I automatically, when I went to Illinois, I got in the elementary ed program right away. I didn't even have to do the year to get myself in. I applied, got right in, started with elementary ed. So I got my degree in elementary education. I actually taught fourth grade for 2 years in between my professional career and becoming a coach
Is
in
that right?
Dallas Metroplex area,
Oh,
Carrollton. Yeah, so I already knew what I wanted to do for school,
wow. Very
and
cool.
and that's how. And so when college was great, I ended up with a 3 point something
Yeah.
GPA, at Illinois, which is a tough school
Yeah, 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 yeah.
academically.
You kind of alluded to this, but how did you pick U of I? You obviously had a lot of choices,
Oh, no,
especially
no,
once
no,
you've.
no. That was easy. I wanted to go to University of Florida where Bay of Kearney was.
Mhm.
That's where I wanted to go.
Right?
And my club coach was like, no, you can't go. So I was really upset. And I was like, I always saying, did she call? Did she call? Because back then it was just different. There was no email.
Yeah, yeah.
And they always, most of the time, reached out to your club coach. So he was
Okay.
totally controlling that. And he was like, and this is good because we're talking about coaches. So he was like, um, and then I kept asking him, did she call? Did she call? And he said, uh, no, she does not want you. Okay. She does not want you. I was number one in 100 hurdles. And I think, no, I was number one in the 400 hurdles and number two in the 100 hurdles. And he was like, no, she doesn't want you. And pretty much I stopped asking.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. And he said, however, there's this coach
Uh-huh.
who I believe is one of the, I don't even know how he found Gary
Yeah.
or how he knows about Gary. That's a stupid thing to say because, I'm sure he was doing clinics and stuff and he happened to be in a clinic,
Right,
probably
right,
a
right.
USATF. So he said, there's this guy and I believe he's one of the most brilliant technician, coach, sprint hurdles coaches out there. But it's not a school like it's not the LSU. So
Yeah, it's not
I went.
sexy. Right. Mhm.
Yeah, I was talking to LSU and they were like, we want you, but we don't need you in the 100 hurdles. You just run the 400 hurdles. And I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. I want to run 4x1s. I want to run. I didn't even like the 400 hurdles. There was no way you were going to convince me to go to college to run them. No. My whole first year at Illinois, I taught Gary out of running the 400 hurdles. I hated the 400 hurdles. So I didn't want to do that event. I wanted to do the 100 hurdles. And LSU was like, we got hurdlers, 100 hurdlers. Angela Stanley, Cinnamon Sheffield, Don Bolt. We don't need
Yeah, yeah,
Mary Cobb. We don't need you.
yeah.
And I was like, I would never do that. So
Mhm.
then he was telling me about Illinois, and he was like, it'll be pretty much about you. Gary will give you a lot of time. Just meet with him. And I was like, okay, cool. So he came to my house and in the hood and he had a laptop and he was like doing stuff on his laptop. And I was like, what? A laptop with like a stick figure person going over hurdles? It was amazing. Sold. When do I sign
Sold.
up?
Is that
So,
right?
and mind you, this was like March because I had the academic thing going on. I was working on my grades at the time, right?
Mhm.
So this was March, and I went to Illinois campus, and it was during the Flying Illini,
Mm.
and it was during March Madness.
Yep.
And I can say we now, but we were killing it. And I
Mhm.
was like, this is a really cool, low-key place. It was just me on the visit. Wasn't that cold. I drove down
Yeah.
because it's like 4 hours from
Okay.
Dayton. And I was like, you know what? Got stuff going on at the house. I won't be too far away. Go straight
Mhm.
to Indy, check it out. Cold weather didn't bother me because I grew up in Dayton. Because everybody would say, you want to go warm, warm, warm. But I didn't even understand the concept of that, like what that was gonna mean. Like I'm
Right.
like, it sounds cool, but I don't really care. I don't ever feel like running in the halls is normal to me. So
Mhm.
I don't care.
Right.
And so after I met him, and he had this kind of goofy personality for like this tall, white, skinny dude. He looked like Woody, from Toy
Yes.
Story.
Down to the boots. Yes.
Cowboy boots, tight jeans, cowboy hat, button down Western shirt. So I was like, I like this guy. He's cool. And he just had a personality that was cool. Like, But I saw exactly what Mr. Martin was telling me about the technical side of it. And I was like, yeah, he's telling me all this stuff about hurdles that I didn't even know exists. I know you run, and when you get to the hurdles, you jump. Even in the program that I was in, that's when I realized like I didn't know nothing when I was running before. Like, and then right away he started working on technical stuff with me and just teaching me everything about the event. And I was soaking it up, and I loved watching videos and just learning and being a student of my event. People say, I'm a student of sport. No, you're not a student of sport, because you can ask me a million things about, pacing of the steeplechase, and I can't tell you, right? Or the discus throw. But I was a student of my event. Like the 400 hurdles, I knew inside out, right? And so we had that bond, and I wanted to, you know, learn the way everything he knew. I'm like, he's really smart, he has all this information, I want to absorb it, right? So that's why I ended up in Illinois. It was specifically Gary Winkler. Like, I found out later that he was looking at he had applied for other jobs. You find that out later as an athlete, you don't know that. And I'm thinking, would have been on the first thing smoking if Gary had, because I think Texas, Florida, he had applied for all these things. I was like, I'd have been on the first. I don't care what he'd have been like, we're going to Timbuktu. I'd be like, all right.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, there's been no question about it. So,
it's every person who becomes a coach has an individual style. There are some that are a little bit more extreme than the others, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I consider Gary an extremist in the sense of very unique, quiet, methodical, intelligent. My take, and I love that, he taught my level 2 for sprints, was a mentor of mine, love him very much, but not going to be the rah coach. There's the rah people, and there's places for that. That's not going to be, you're going to find your own internal rah when you're coached by Gary. How did, as you're working through and you're soaking up all this information on hurdles, and you're learning how to hurdle better, and you're hopefully doing better academically as well, so you end up getting a degree, that's the good point, so you end up doing okay there. How did the relationship from freshman, it's much more, I would have to think, authoritarian. Gary tells you X, Y, and Z. Maybe by your senior year, because the style, you're more in the leadership. Maybe there's a little bit more input. How did the relationship grow throughout those 4 to 5 years, or did it at all? Did he stay authoritarian the whole time?
Yeah, he stayed authoritarian the whole time. And then right away, when I came to the program, I was like, there was me and another girl that was a walk-on that were freshmen, so there wasn't a big freshman class. So everybody else was upper class. And I saw some of the girls kind of like resist, they didn't like him, or they were resisting him, or it's, like being territorial and stuff. And I was just kind of like, just sitting back observing. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to not be that. Like, because the the ones that were teaming up with Gary were successful. So I'm like,
you recognize that quick.
I'm gonna be the one. This is you. I can say bitch, right? I'm not gonna be the one sitting back bitching and not be successful. I'm falling in line, right? Because the ones that are falling in line, Marita Payne, Michelle Finn Burrell, and Selena Mondi Milner, they're doing well. Very well. So to me, that was pretty easy. And I was just never the athlete that questioned my coach. So whatever he told me, and like I said, it was pretty obvious that he knew what he was doing. Why would he listen to me?
Right.
I don't know anything about coaching, So he's not like overly emotional, and never yelling or anything like that. Very matter of fact. I used to run the 400 hurdles, and so I ran really fast when I was like 14, and I broke like the national age group record when I was 14, and then I never could run faster until I turned like 20
Mm.
was a really big mental thing for me that I was like,
Yeah,
I don't think
sure.
I'm ever going to run faster than when I was 14, so I don't want to do it anymore. Right.
Right.
Quitting thing. I was just like, I don't want to do it. Um, and so I used to run like this, all
Hmm.
hesitant. And I just wouldn't, I was just always protecting myself when I run. He was like,
Mm.
so I'd have to sit with him when we were watching videos, and he'd be not yelling, but just like, open your arms up. Why are you grabbing, you know? And I would just be like, you know. So that was like stuff that would scare me. Like, even though he wasn't even aggressive, but I was like, he's
Right.
gonna kill me if I don't get this right. And so one day we were at Rice. I remember so clearly. I was a sophomore in college. We were at Rice. And I said, I was so worried about that next Monday going to watch film
Hmm.
that I said, I don't care if I fall. I don't care. I'm just going to run with I'm just the whole time, I'm just gonna run like this. I'm just gonna run like this the whole time. And I don't even care. I rather fall, bust my head open than have to deal with him on Monday.
Right.
Right. So I ran the whole race like that. And I went from like my PB of like a minute to like 56 in that one race. I broke like a 4-second PB.
Wow.
Oh, I know why I didn't get this laptop. My phone, it's dying. Let me grab my charger
Yeah,
real
go
quick.
ahead.
Let me get it real quick.
That's that's a really good example of listening to your coach as she grabs her charger. Just kind of astounded just listening to that story of coach, giving her the cues of like, why are you so tight with your arms? Open them up, and then trusting coach and saying, you know what, fine, let's see what happens. I don't want to hear about it again on Monday. Um, I'm gonna do the open arms, and if I come in last or fall flat on my face or run a 10-second slower than my PB, well, then maybe I can say something. I don't think she would have said something to him though about that, and then goes out and PRs by 4 seconds in the 400 hurdles. Come on. I mean, that's the kind of story we need to be sharing with our athletes about believing and trusting and listening to our coaches. What a great, great example
I got
there.
it. My body's gonna die. I know. And so, Mike, I'm done. And I'm like, oh, is that what he's been telling me this whole time? Is that all I had to do? And of course, I'm doing it in
Wow.
practice, right?
Right.
I wouldn't have been able to do it or wasn't doing that practice. And I'm like, I just I just, it was a fear, right? I just
Yeah.
got over that fear because, like I said, I had to come to terms with I'm gonna crash out if that's what it takes.
Right. Right.
And that's what I didn't want to do, right?
Yeah.
And after that, I made Pan Am team. I got a bronze medal at Pan Am's out of lane one, made World University Games. Like my whole career just changed in that one
Wow.
month. That's why I remember it so clearly.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
was me like not wanting to get the criticism from my coach.
Right.
I was
How,
like, I just can't deal with it.
how did you said you didn't even want to run the 400 hurdles when you first
No,
got to how did he even convince you that, hey, this is your actual race here?
he told me because I was my freshman year, we got to Big Ten, and I was convincing him like, if you let me, I promise you, I can score in the 200 at the Big Ten meets freshman year. If you just don't make me run the hurdles, and so I think I know he understood how much I just despised. I was running, it was terrible. I was overweight too at the time, and so he agreed, and I thought, oh, finally. So I ran 100 hurdles. I won 100 hurdles as a freshman, and in the 200, I got third.
Hmm.
But I was like, whew, finally, I don't have to do this. So first day of practice, sophomore year, and he said, okay, so let me just explain something to you, because you could talk to your athletes like this back then. He said, so you run the 400 hurdles this year, and if you don't want to, then you can go on back to Dayton. It's up to you.
Wh- What do
Pretty
you
much go. You can go.
What do you think he saw? Because like I started putting myself in his shoes. I have this freshman. I know she could be a pretty good 400 hurdler. At least I think that. But she wins the 100 hurdles and she loves that. That's cool. She got third in the 200, by the way. That's no. I was waiting for you to tell me a story like you crashed out in the 200, didn't even make final. You got third, coming back for a sophomore year. Cool. Let's make you the best 100 hurdle 200. But
Because he knew I would never be a 3-time Olympian or an Olympic medalist
Mm,
in the 100 hurdles or the 200, which is the event that
mm,
my favorite event was the 200.
mm,
Never. I mean, he just knew it. And then
right.
he told me one day, I'll never forget, he said, these legs are going to make you, well, because one time I wasn't taking care of myself. And he was like, these legs are going to make you some money one day. So you better start taking care of yourself. Just stuff like
Yeah.
that. I never forget those things
Yeah.
my coach
Yeah.
was telling me. But no, he knew I wasn't making an Olympic team in 100 hurdles.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I
but
just
for
wasn't,
but for him to stick to his gun, you know what I'm saying? Like that's
he saved me. He
yeah.
saved me because I was really um uh stubborn about it at the time. And that's what I wanted to do. I didn't even like the 400 hurdles. I didn't like it at
Wow.
all. And so then when I realized that I could not get him to change his mind. And I knew I wasn't going to get him to change his mind
Hmm.
because I didn't even know how to alternate. So I had never learned that. So I was learning to alternate and I would run up to the hurdle and stop. And one time he was like, if you do that again, I'm sending you home. There's a practice.
Yeah.
And I did it. And he was like, I didn't think he was going to seriously do it. Right. I was just like, it's a figure of speech.
Right, right, right.
He was like, go, get out of here. Get out of here. And I'm like, no, I promise. He said, no, go. And that's my only practice I ever missed in 4 years. I was
Yeah.
never injured. I never missed practice. And I was like walking up that hill, the hill. And
Uh-huh.
I can't believe I got kicked out of practice. Never went around the hurdle again. Like, Gary's like very, like, he doesn't play when it comes to like discipline.
Yeah.
And if I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. Like I saw him leaving people. We go on trips. If the bus is pulling off at 10, the bus is pulling off at 10.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no
That's how I
bluff.
was as a head
Yeah.
coach when I was at Illinois. I
Right.
don't care if you're the superstar.
Right.
Like you can figure out how to get here Uber,
Yeah.
but the bus is leaving at 10 o'clock.
Right.
So when I was at Texas and there wasn't that discipline, I couldn't handle it. It was like, how long are we gonna wait here for everybody to show up? An hour, 2
Right.
hours?
Right.
Like, what are we doing? But I
Right.
wasn't the head coach.
Yeah.
So that was really tough because I couldn't function under that because I had such a even my club coach, Harold Martin, Mr. Martin, practice started at 6 o'clock. Like you were already jogging by 6 o'clock. We had 1 hour practice. So at 6, so everybody knew to be there on time. These were disciplined coaches that I had my whole career as an athlete, as a track runner. So that was something that was just never an option for me. Yeah.
As you graduate from the University of Illinois, elementary education, now there's a pro career that happens. Did Gary coach you all the way through the pro side? That's awesome. Again, speaks towards that consistency is key in regards to training. Was there any change in because now you're becoming an adult, right? You're 22 and you move on, you're 25, 28, as you're an athlete, so you're an adult now. Any change in relationship between you and coach? Did he coach you differently? Had to continue to be some kind of evolution of the relationship?
Yeah, I was the one changing. Gary wasn't ever changing. I ended up getting married. In the time that I was a pro athlete, I got married, I moved away, I was doing remote training back and forth. I had a child. So everything that I was doing in my career was my life changing. Gary was pretty status quo the whole time, right? And he was really patient with me with all of that, right? Because it started getting to the point for me that track was my number 2 and number 3 on my list of priorities, right? And he never was like, get your shit together. It was kind of like, I see her life evolving and this is how, because he was always like that, It's different when you're 19 or 20 and as a coach, you're saying, I am trying to get you to understand the foundation of the sport. and why you need to go this path versus another one,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's like, if you look at it, it's really even the same evolution I've had with Gabby when she first came to me. And, even getting her to understand, because she's so great that she, not even just on the track, that she always knew she's going to do something really important and valuable. And she's
Mm-hmm.
got a lot of degrees and she's smart and she gets in front of people and they attracted her really easily. So she wasn't really that engaged in the sport, right? It's like
Mm-hmm. Right.
I'm going to be great whether I have this sport or not.
Right.
A lot of us in the sport don't feel that way, right? So it was me trying to convince her, like, I know there's a million things you can do, but I mean, but this you can make something really big out of this thing here,
Right. Right.
right? And I mean, she sees that now, but I think at first she's kind of like, I can be running I can have my own hospital one day, if
Right.
like,
Yeah. Right. 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 Yeah.
where you're gonna make money, you're gonna do big things, you're gonna do great things, and so I think when they're young and they're in that foundational stage, it's important for a coach to be very adamant about the direction.
Mm.
Then as they evolve, then meaning the athlete is going to start taking their own path, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you just
Mm-hmm.
kind of got to sit back and watch,
Right.
because they're young adults growing into adulthood.
Right.
We were already there. So we have to let them work through their life the way they see fit. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's amazing, when you coach a kid at any block of their time, when you coach a kid from 14 to 18, freshman year through senior year, there's a lot of changes that kid goes through.
Mhm.
College, when you coach them from 18 to 22, there's a lot of things that, the little fresh birdie can't barely even walk and fly freshman to like senior year, like you're about to go into a career. Like there's a lot of changes. Continuing that all the way through a full elite career, you talk about getting married and having a child, like he saw you at 18, 17 years old when he recruited you, and now you're
I
this.
was older because my birthday's in December. I was 18.
Okay, and you're now this
Yep, yep.
full-fledged adult with a husband and a child, and we're still
And
trying
now
to
look, and now I'm an
confront
old
hurdles.
lady. And I was just at his Hall of Fame
Hmm.
in my
Hmm.
50s,
Hmm.
yeah, like that is a huge evolution of time. But yes, you
Yeah,
see different phases
yeah,
in he saw all the phases in my life,
yeah, right, yeah,
and being an adult. Yeah,
yeah, so
absolutely.
cool.
That's amazing.
So you go through, you have an amazing, awesome professional career, mini Olympics medals. You retire. You already told us when you retire, you go and you start teaching fourth grade down in
Mhm.
Texas. Love that.
Yep.
How
Mhm.
does coaching come involved? It seems like you're on a path to be a teacher, which is a great. I mean, if I were interviewing right now as a teacher, I'd be like, this is the most amazing thing in the world. You affect young people. How did this come about?
So absolutely. So at my junior year in college, we were getting ready to start doing our what you call C&I, which is the curriculum and instruction classes.
Okay.
And then you go into where you're going to go to the school and actually do your
Student
residency or whatever,
teaching. Yeah. Mhm.
and your student teaching. And I happened to be in this one class where they were talking about the pretty much the administrative side of it.
Mhm.
And so they start talking about salaries. And I
Mhm.
was like, what?
Hmm.
Wait a minute. What have I gotten myself into? And I'm like, and because I'm a high achiever, and this is still college, not a pro yet, but because I'm a high achiever, I'm like, but what do you do to get like the big bonuses and if I'm out teaching everybody, then I should be rewarded, right? Nope. So I'm like, ooh, this is a weird one because I'm knee deep into this teaching thing. So anyway,
Yeah.
I retire, I start teaching, and I actually was able to secure one of the top open positions at a brand new elementary school in Carrollton, Texas. And
How did you get to Carrollton, by the way? Because I'm still
my husband's
picturing.
from Fort Worth, so
Okay.
We just
Got
lived
it.
in the Metroplex
Got
for a
it. Got
minute.
it. Yep.
So so I had my son already, did the first year. In the middle of the second year, I got pregnant with my daughter, and I took the normal 6 weeks off, and then I took another 6 weeks off. And then I said, I got to go back though to see my kids before the end of the year, right? Because I had her in April. So I was like, let me see them before the end of the year so I can kind of say goodbye to them before I
Yeah.
start the next year. And then I got a call from Gary, and he was like, you want to be my assistant coach? And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, I
Wow.
have a position coming up and you volunteered for me. And I'm like, I don't like, and my first question was, or first thing to him, I said, you know, I got two little kids, like little. My daughter was like 3 months old at the
Right.
time. And he was like, yeah, I mean, I know. And I'm like, okay, but I just need you to know I need to be with my kids. Like, I'm not one of those, I'm not missing stuff,
Yeah.
you know? And he's like, I got you. And that's ended up how it was. But he told me, like, he's like, and so then once we started kind of getting into the groove, he was like, I want you to learn for 5 years, and then you could become the head coach. But you got to learn everything, the insides, the outs, the administration side, how to deal with parents,
Right.
the budget, scholarships, everything. And that means you will be a shadow.
Mm.
And most importantly, the first few years, you're going to be more of a shadow than you're going to be coaching.
Mm.
And I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes total sense to me, until I started getting to the point where I wanted to coach and I thought I had learned all this and I want to, and I would, but I would, if he were having a meeting with a parent, I would sit in the meeting and see how he handled it.
Huh.
Right. That's, I think, that people don't understand about when they have assistant coaches, and they don't ever train their assistant coaches to be like, you go coach your event area and don't,
Yes.
you know, no, it was not like that. Every single time he went to a budget meeting, he would ask the administrator if I could sit in. Crazy stuff that I'm telling you, coaches don't do this now,
No,
right?
I
And so
was
these coaches get the assistant coaches that have been long-time assistant coaches get head jobs, and they don't even know what a budget looks like,
Yep.
right? They don't know how to handle an irate parent who thinks their child is always right.
Yep.
They don't know how to plan a track trip.
Right.
Right? Because Gary did that. He didn't let the secretary do that. He's
Right.
like, this is where we're going. This is what time. This is time we want, And now they have more director of ops now, but there's so many administrative things behind the scene. And then even just how to be a leader, because that goes down to the relays. We don't
Yeah.
talk about the relays, right?
Yeah.
Even, the relay position at any level, relay coach position at any level, is a leadership position.
Right.
It's not that hard to get to stick around the track, right?
Right.
The athletes know how to do it. They've come up in programs where they've had to do it.
Yeah.
It's simply, and now there's some tweaks here and there, but it's simply managing people and managing other people around people to make sure things go as smoothly as possible. And if you're a strong leader, then it goes really smoothly,
Mm-hmm.
right? And those are things that you have to know to be a head coach. So I went into this very cooperative, and then I think maybe 2 years into it, I'm like, you know what? I kind of want my own group. I want to see. It wasn't more like, I think I'm this or that. I was just like, I need to see if I can get an athlete from point A to point B to a race successfully without Gary. Because I don't know if I'm doing this, or I don't know if he's doing this.
Right. Right.
And so he started. So I remember one year we were at the NCAA meet in California, where we always go, Sacramento.
Sacramento State.
And so I was like, I'm gonna go ask him. I'm gonna say, like, I really want, So I got my whole speech together, and I'm nervous, and I'm walking up, and I'm like, so I really think that I've learned a lot. No, okay, thank you. I walked because they used to talk about me, Mike. I'm gonna tell you, and I know the coaches used to do this. They don't know I know, but they used to call me Gary's clipboard girl.
Oh, Mm.
They did. So I had a little ego too, where I was like, I know more than y'all think I know, and I'm gonna show y'all. But I didn't
Huh.
have the authority to do it. And Gary was right because I wasn't ready. Right.
Huh.
So then year 3, we go through the whole year, and I'm getting more and more anxious because you have to understand this is a single gender program. So there's only 3 coaches. So there was the field coach,
That's
me and
right.
Gary.
That's right.
There was no, well, I'm sorry, the distance coach and me and Gary.
Right.
No field coach. So guess who was standing next to the pole vault when pole vault practice? Guess who was at shot put practice? Guess who was at discus practice?
Yep. Yep.
Hammer, long jump, triple. I was there for every single event, and I
Right.
learned so much about all the other events.
Hmm.
And one time Gary told me, he said, well, when this is your program and your shot put coach gets hit by a bus, because of course this is something Gary would say, if your shot put coach gets hit by a bus on the way to the Big Ten meet, you can coach the shot put. And I was
Because
like,
that will be your first thought.
so that was
So
so
awesome.
I've been standing by every single technical practice of every event other than the distance events. Which is why did you see my milers? Apparently they went out too fast according to
You know,
all of the social media
you're listening to this in January of 2025, but we're recording this in December. And literally today on the social media was, or no, it was on Reddit this morning. That's where I read it on Reddit about Gabby runs a mile. And then there was this whole discussion of how she ran the mile. I'm very surprised that she can't run 4:30 and all that. I was like, whoa, bro. Yeah, yeah. Lots
well,
of
listen
internet
here.
chatter
She
about this
probably
miles.
could run faster if it was a different pace, but do you know how hard it is to get a girl that can run 21 seconds to run a 40-second 200? I mean, that right there is painful.
Yeah,
Okay. I'd
yeah.
rather, so, and guess what? I don't want to teach her to run that slow.
Right.
It's a mile time trial that has
That's right.
no value
That's right.
to what,
That's right.
so no, I don't want to, I
That's
don't
right.
want to dive that deep into pace.
Oh yeah.
Okay. But yeah, so, I, I think that another year later, I did the whole spiel. We were at nationals, same place, Sacramento. I got my nerve up, and this time I said, I am not taking no for an answer. I'm just not. I'm getting my nerve up. I'm going to do it. He's going to hear me out. And I had stuff written down. Gary, can we talk? I believe I am ready next year to have my own group from start to finish because I need to see what I'm capable of doing as a coach. You know what this man said to me?
No?
You're right.
You're like, hold on, I wasn't prepared for that. Hold on.
I wasn't. I don't even need to go down my list
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
of
That wasn't an
my
option
arguments.
here.
Awesome. He said, but here's the deal. Because he does his workouts in week blocks where Monday, the whole week is set out through Friday. I'm not one of them coaches where the athletes don't know how many sets and reps they have, and I'm surprising them and throwing them off and, making them feel insecure about, I don't know if I got 10 more, 2 more,
Right, right, right.
No, you know exactly how many sets and reps you have it. So he said, have your training done by the end of the week for the next week. So bring it to me Friday. Let me have a look at it.
Yeah.
So if there's some things you need to do differently or some things I see. So I would sit down myself and write the plan for the week and all the back then it was more periodization stuff. I don't really do that as much anymore. But so I would write it out and then he'd say, you got 2 lactic days back and look, you got this here,
Right.
and I'm like, oh yeah, you know what? I didn't see that one. And so I tidy it up a bit, take it back to him and be like, yeah, that looks good. Okay, boom. And I would do that. And I did that for a while till it got to less and less of corrections,
Right.
less and less of showing him and more of me, like skipping a week, and do
Right.
because less and less correction, less and less changes, more and more of me doing it right. See, that is teaching. That's
Yes.
training,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's how I learned to put the pieces together in a training week, what the week looks like and why it's the way it is and why do you add certain things.
Right.
And then understanding that just because it's written, it's not written in blood, you can change it.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
see how the workout is going per individual and make adjustments, right?
Yep.
So that's how I learned to be a good coach, is from Gary just going through that. A lot of people don't know that that's what Gary's clipboard girl was doing. Okay.
It strikes me that, I paid $1,000 or whatnot to go to level two. Gary was my level two teacher. You were getting paid to do that same, but much more in-depth education. Like I had to pay to get that education from
And you
Gary.
only got it for a
That's what I'm
weekend.
saying. And you
I was
got it
getting
in
it every
depth.
day.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I was getting it every day.
Quick comment. I love how you said, the workout isn't written in blood. I used to say this isn't the Ten Commandments. It's not written in stone. I get to change this.
I can change it if I want. Right, right, right.
And most importantly, what you started with this conversation, I have a real passion in agreement with what you said there. I don't think, I get to talk to, air quotes, every coach in the country, high school through college on a daily basis, whether it's through social media, through this forum here with the podcast. And I think overall, some are doing a good job, but overall, we are doing a terrible job with our assistant coaches in regards to their professional development. One of my favorite questions to ask, and I will ask you this here in a couple minutes, when they get their first head coaching job is, were you prepared? Were you ready? And it's a little bit of a test. I'm kind of giving away a little bit of the secrets for the future guest here. It's a little bit of a test because when they come in and say, "Oh yeah, I was ready," it's like, but you didn't know how to do budget. Like you think you had to learn on the job. That's what most new head coaches have to do. They have to learn so much on the job.
The,
I love that Gary involved you in budgeting and travel and scheduling and
the
recruiting.
reason that
That's
I'm
awesome.
so passionate about this, and I
Yeah.
can say it without blinking an eye, is when I took the associate head coach position at Texas, that is what I thought had happened because that's what I thought that everybody did
Right.
until I realized it didn't.
Mm-mm. Why do you got a lot of experience? I have my own theories. Why do you think more head coaches don't think of part of their job duties as the director or head coach is to grow up their assistants to maybe one day, if they want to be, one day become head coaches? It's really a lack of delegation. Why do you think, I want to say a lot of head coaches don't delegate more to their staff?
It's two things. They either want to keep them down in the position they're in,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
because then one day when they become head, they're going to be my competitor, and the stronger they are, the tougher my competition is. Or they're just selfish and don't care. They're focused on themselves. Their main goal is to win a national championship, and they're not investing the time. That's the only two things I can think. Any coaches that I ever worked with, I let them do their own thing, but I always wanted them to actually my assistant coaches helped me more than any. Like Jeremy Rasmussen was my distance coach, and he would say, "Hey coach, you do them entries yet? No, you go ahead and do them." They were always like, I always wanted people who had more degrees than me and more
Mm-hmm.
like around me so that we could all, so I didn't fail,
Right.
right? And that we could all be successful.
Yeah.
And so, and of course, because again, that's how I was trained. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's the only two things I can think. I don't have an answer for it, but
Yeah.
that has to be the reality because otherwise it doesn't make any sense.
That's my sense as well. That it's another way of saying it. The way I would say it is, it's an ego issue.
It's an ego issue.
It's a
And
loss
if you
of
are
power.
an assistant coach and you are begging your leader to teach you and train you, I don't think you're in the right program.
Yeah.
You should go because
Yeah.
and that's the thing is I I don't want to speak on something that I it's never been hard for me to get a coaching job. So I don't want to make it seem like it's easy and
Right.
you should turn that job down if it's not the right. I mean, sometimes you got to just go where get in where you fit in. So I would never do that. I mean, I hear it's hard for some people to get coaching jobs, so they can't really be picky, right? So I don't want to ever come across
That's right.
like that. That's not my experience, so I don't want to make it seem like that. But at the same time, I would encourage you, if you have a head coach and a leader that is willing to do that, if you can ask every now and then, hey, can I, even if you don't have an aspiration to be a head coach, because you never know what can happen, to say, do you mind if I sit in a budget meeting? Do you mind if I sit in with this when you talk to that parent or whatever? Some coaches, if they're having trouble with an athlete, that's not, I'm a head coach. There's a sprinter. I have a sprint coach, but I don't even allow my sprint coach to sit. Like, what is that?
Right.
So yeah. And I know it happens because it happened to me when I was at.
You made me think of the other side of it. Because I'm such a big proponent of leadership, I always kind of put things on the leader. And so in this case, the head coach. But you did make me think about the other side of it. Maybe there's some apathy of not even being ambitious enough to ask. Like I just assume he or she's gonna tell me to do X, Y, or Z.
That's why I said you might have to put it on you to ask.
Yeah, it's probably some combination of both there. Instead of I've been very focused on the head coach. Okay, so Tonja, what was it like? Gary retires. First of all, a legend, as you mentioned, Hall of Famer. I mean, everybody knew he was going to be in every Hall of Fame that would be available to him. He retires. You take over the head coaching job. It's one thing to take over a program as the first time head coach. That's one thing. I mean, that's its own set of issues and things you got to learn, things like that. But you're replacing your guy, your mentor, the guy who grew you up. Now, I'm going to ask that same question of were you ready? But you've already kind of described Gary has done more than what I've heard in a lot of other cases of actually preparing you. So you might be the closest to one who could actually say, I was ready. Yeah. Okay. What was that like? You walk in on Monday and now it's head coach.
It was easy. Let's go. I had started thinking about what I wanted to do, and I put together rules and guidelines for how I wanted the team to specific things. Had a team meeting. I'm like, everybody, we're reading through these rules, initial each page and turn it in to me. So when you get caught after midnight, you shouldn't have been there because we went, it's not going to be on me. We have a curfew. And if you're caught out after that, then you got to deal with it with the administrator, right? Because I've told you not to do it. So we had, certain things about being on time. But the thing is, our team was already so disciplined because Gary was already the head coach.
Right,
so it's not like you're taking this team where there's been all of this lack of discipline and you're like, I got to reel everybody in, and everybody is so used to being undisciplined that they're pissed that you come in with these rules. It wasn't like that.
You were already part of the culture of building that as well. So it's not like this big transition.
And half of the people on the team, well, 3/4 of the people on the team, because the sophomores, juniors, and seniors, or the freshmen, sophomores, and juniors were already there. And so now you just have this new freshman class of people that I recruited and
they don't know anything. So yeah.
So yeah, it was really easy for me to transition into that. And then I was able to pick my own coaches, and I didn't pick people who were friends. I did not know these people. Mike Erb, Jeremy Rasmus. I went through strictly resumes, and I called their previous coaches. I didn't know them. They weren't friends of mine. Mike Erb, he's at Indiana right now. I don't know if you know Mike.
He's a podcast alum.
Okay. This guy is unbelievable. And I'm going to tell you what did it for me with him, because this is another coaching thing too. I was at the USA Championships, and he knew I had the job coming up. I had the position out. Of course, he sent his resume. I didn't see it, never recognized the name. I saw it, but I didn't see it, right? So he reached out and he's like, hey, I really want to talk to you about the job. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, okay. Like
everybody and their brother does.
Yeah. And then he said, you're going to be at the championships, right? And I'm like, yeah. And he said, well, I don't have any athletes there, but I can come up and meet with you and drive up and talk to you. And I'm like, okay. I'm not gonna have a lot of time, but okay, like, all right, fine. And so then it ended up we going through the championship meet. and he ended up calling again and like, hey, can I meet with you? And then he told me he had drove, and I was like, dang, I really got to meet with him because he like got on the road. And so I was like leaving, or I just know there was something where there was only a little bit of time.
Right.
And I was like, he's like, well, where are you? And I'm like, well, yeah, I'm at this hotel. I was at the main hotel. I'm getting in the elevator. And he's like, okay, if you can just give me 2 minutes, that's fine. So he comes and hold on, gets in the elevator. We had an elevator conversation for probably 15 seconds. And he got out, and I said to myself, somebody that would be that aggressive and available, and I just want you to see the whites of your eyes, right? I was like, I gotta look more into his resume, right? So already before I looked at the resume, I saw the human, and I'm like, and then when I read, and I was like, you know what? With his tenacity, and he's done a really good job. I think it was Redlands or somewhere that he was at.
Yeah.
I was like, that's the kind of person I need.
Right.
Right. And that's how he ended up getting the job, just by putting himself in a position to, like, he went after that job. Right.
So I'm glad. I love this. And this is what, when we talk about building legacy and things like that, that's what we're building with our library here, because we've had Herb on the show. And one of the things that was fascinating through his story was how he got this job. Because, I hate to say the internet. It's not even the internet. I'm not even going to blame the internet on this one. The culture of, I'll speak specifically to track and field coaching, hiring on the collegiate side is, if you don't know someone, you ain't getting the job. And so Mike shared that story, and it was
did he tell the story about me?
Yes.
He did? Yeah.
Yes. And it was a cool, like, hey, see other people that are listening. You don't, it certainly helps. Let's not sugarcoat things here, but it's not impossible.
All the time. I'm like, stop hiring your friends. And if you notice, they're only there for a short period of time anyway. Yeah. Like, I never changed out coaches. I had the same coach the entire 5 years that I was head coach. I had the same coach.
So this is where I'm curious. This is where we want to learn from you. So go back. How did you learn that? When we talk about all the things that Gary helped you to be involved with so that you can learn ahead of time. So budgeting, recruiting, all these other things. One of the things that I've noticed that we have almost zero formal, or it's all informal, formal training with head coaches is a staff evaluation, hiring and firing staff. So how did you, it's easier, it's the fallback to say, I know so-and-so, so I'm going to hire them. Like, I have a comfortability.
It's easier to fire somebody you're not friends with if they're not doing the job right.
So continue on with that. Where did you learn this though? How was this natural for you, and it's not natural for the industry?
It seems hypocritical me saying that because Gary hired me, right?
Yeah. Okay. Great point.
But I was his only familial hire. Everything else was that way.
Okay.
And again, it is easier to fire somebody if they're not doing their job, if they're not your friend.
we don't think about that part when we're hiring the friend.
I'm not saying
that's
don't,
a great
and
point.
I shouldn't say that. I'm gonna take that back. I'm not gonna say don't hire your friend, but
right.
Make that a prerequisite in the hiring process.
Yeah, that's your number one qualification. That's a problem.
Let me start getting rid of every of the ones that don't sound familiar to me. And because Coach Herb's resume was still in the pile. It hadn't been eliminated because I didn't recognize his name. I just didn't recognize his name, right? I was really planning to do a thorough evaluation, but it definitely does help if I'm not a friend of yours, you don't know who I am, you don't recognize my name, and you make yourself available to me, right? In a way that others don't, right? I mean, this guy wasn't at the meet. He made himself available for the meet. It's different if I'm already at the meet, I got athletes here, I'm gonna run into you anyway. That's what made it different, is that, and with all the effort and time and the money he spent to get there, he was okay with 15 seconds. And it wasn't like, I can't believe she tried to play me off like that. Who thinks she is? And
Yeah.
I told her I was going to be, because I didn't do a good job of making myself available because the time had gotten away from me.
Right.
And, and I felt bad that I was like, oh man, I know and that was really the only reason I even took any time to meet with him is because I knew he had driven down and did
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
So,
Did you
yeah.
did you get like a sense of like, man, if this dude uh if he'll do this, I feel like he'll do that for recruiting and for our team. Like in there a little bit like he's kind of showing his true colors
Absolutely.
from the jump, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because your work ethic and your dedication and stuff like that, you cannot put on a paper resume,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm.
And you can't always take someone's word for it. And one thing Gary did always tell me is he said, don't ever give him a recommendation for somebody that you don't believe in. Don't give a fake recommendation. So he did tell me that. He did teach me that too. So I never, if I say somebody is like worth hiring, they're worth hiring. Otherwise, I'll just avoid it.
All right. So you're at U of I, you're hiring a staff, you guys have success. Um, you have probably the most fun time in your life besides maybe your honeymoon or wedding day. You get to go to the football suite with the Gill Athletics crew with your husband and son. We had a great time. Uh, you leave to go to University of Tech. It broke my heart a little bit, to be honest with you, because I just
Broke
loved
my
having
heart
you here
too.
in Champaign.
Broke my
Uh,
heart too.
and I have a special place in my heart for alums who coach at their alma mater. Like there's just some reason, I don't know why, that's just special to me. And you go to University of Texas. So talk to us a little bit about why and how that worked out.
Well, I wanted to stay in Illinois. I had put together a few proposals while I was there because if you recall, I was the women's coach and I was also coaching the men's sprinters
Right.
because they had an interim,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So I'm the head coach. I'm successful. We're winning Big Ten championships.
mm-hmm.
We have this interim position. Most of the programs in the country are now being combined.
Right.
Why not? So I call up Mike Holloway.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's my homeboy. He called me his homegirl because we both from Ohio.
Mm-hmm. That's
I
right. Oh,
called
that's
him
right.
and
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, help me put together a proposal because I want to put a proposal. So they hadn't hired a coach yet.
Right.
Just had the interim there, Coach Turk. And I was like, hey, if you can help me put this proposal together so that I could give it to the AD about potentially combining the program and then I
Yeah.
become the head coach for both programs.
Right.
And he did, and I put together a couple good ones. I think I talked to Karen Dennis also,
Mm-hmm.
who because she had run head coach and programs and was a combined coach
And has
in
an
the Big
Ohio
Ten.
connection.
Yep,
This all
Ohio.
comes
Yep,
back to Ohio. I'm getting it. I'm seeing
and
it
she's
now.
in the Big Ten.
Yep.
Having a little bit more of a connection with what we're doing in the Big Ten,
Right.
and they just kept ignoring me, and they kept ignoring me, and they kept
Mm.
just pretending it wasn't even happening, wouldn't even respond to me. Now, this was not Josh. I
Right, right, right.
really believe if Josh Whitman were there, that I would probably even still be coaching at Illinois right now.
That doesn't
That's what
sound
I
off the
believe.
wall to me. Yeah. Mhm.
That's my personal opinion. So
Yeah.
anyway, I get this offer from Texas,
Mhm.
and I had been begging for my assistant coaches to get raises
Mhm.
because they had not gotten any raises. And
Mhm.
um, I didn't get the combined position. They wouldn't even talk to me about it. And so then they hired a men's coach. Fine, we'll just stay separate. That's fine. And then they bring him in and give him my identical salary after I coached all the men on that team and I'm winning titles.
Mhm.
Okay. And I'm like, dang, that's crazy. And then hire his assistant coaches and pay them twice as much as my assistant coaches were getting paid. So this is my opinion. In my opinion, we helped keep the men's program afloat.
Mhm.
Myself and my assistants helped keep them afloat while we were in this interim kind of
Right.
uh, abyss. And then I was more devastated about the assistant coach salaries. And their explanation was, well, when you come in at a different at a certain time, then there's this competitive thing, right? So they have to compete salaries for what other assistant coaches at other universities are getting, right?
Sure.
So I'm like, so then raise their salary.
That's right. I agree with you, AD. I have to be competitive to keep my assistants as well.
You know what they told me I had to do?
Uh-oh.
Get a new coach coming in, and then they could get that salary.
Wow.
So I was like,
wow.
No, so I was already really unhappy about it. I had no problems with Coach Turk or anything. I was not happy with how the process went. And I was like, how in the world do we end up in this space where I'm getting the same salary and my assistant coaches are getting less of salary? No, not cool. So when the Texas job came about, and I remember one time I was talking to, you said I can't say names, right? Okay, so this was a legendary coach that passed away recently, and I was talking to him, and I always would say, it's not about the money, it's not about the money. And he said, stop saying that. It's always about the money.
Because you can't say names. I prefer you don't say names if it's negative towards that person.
Okay, so this is Brooks Johnson.
Thank you. Okay,
but because Brooks was telling me
a quick pause just for our listeners. So she mentioned now 3 amazing people: Mouse, Karen, and Brooks Johnson. I just, as you're listening to this podcast, all 3 are podcast alums here as well, and I can't implore you enough. I've said this many, many times, and I'll say it many, many more times over, specifically to this person she just said right here, Brooks Johnson. That podcast changed my life, and I'm not even a coach anymore. So I highly recommend you go back and listen to him. Mouse was an OG. I think he's like episode 30 something. Fascinating story. Love his journey. You got to go listen to that. And Karen Dennis, one of the most humblest people. Love her to death. I'm so happy she's retired, meaning she's living a life. I love that.
Yeah, she's
chilling. That for everybody. But what a loss we had in the coaching profession when she did retire. An amazing human being. So yeah, positive wise, please say names.
Yeah.
Let's stick away from being negative people. So you called Brooks. I love this. You had Brooks in called a mentor corner.
This just happened to be a conversation.
Oh, okay, got it.
And I just remember one time he told me, stop saying that.
Yeah, love that.
It's always about the money, because how much someone pays you shows you your value, right? So
and we're in a profession that depresses salaries already. So yes, right. I love. So
I was already great message. I loved Illinois, and I loved coaching there, and I was always happy, and I didn't want to leave. But then when I was offered the money to go to Texas, what I was hoping was that Illinois would now step up. That's what I was hoping would happen. And it didn't.
Yeah.
It didn't. It was almost like they were like, oh, we're not going to be able to compete with that. Sorry.
Right.
And so I had even, this is funny. I had even said, I will take it at this salary, and you pay my assistants X dollars.
Yeah.
And they were like, they didn't want to pay that. Do you know they ended up paying the new coach exactly what I was going to reduce myself to stay there?
Wow.
Because then it was like, oh, but that's the going rate, so we gotta pay. It's like, so actually, if you fire me and rehire me at that amount, then I'm good. But
that's what I was thinking. I was like, how do you fire your assistants, but then immediately rehire them so you can get them on the new?
You know what? I didn't think about that at the time. I should have did that. I should say, fire them and let me rehire them.
Dangerous game to play, by the way.
It is dangerous game to play. And then fire myself and rehire myself back. So
there is not career advice for anybody listening.
So understand the amount that I got to go to Texas.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm getting paid this at Illinois.
Right.
I would have accepted this.
Right.
And not taken this
to
stay. You tell me no, and then you bring in somebody in that spot.
Yeah. It really shows a lack of caring for the people you have right in front of you. It really does. It's like, I'd rather go get someone new. I know what I have in you, and obviously I'm happy with you because I haven't fired you. You're still here.
I'm glad to tell that story because a lot of people who are connected to me, even my friends that went to school with me and the alumni are really disappointed that I left Texas. And I'm sure it looked like I was just running toward the cash, which I was, because that was my value. But at the same time, it wasn't the whole story.
Right.
And I definitely, if it were different, I definitely would have stayed.
Yeah. Now let's talk about Texas. You know, I'm not naive. I think there are certain universities, for many reasons, that have a higher propensity to win nationals and attract the top high school talent, and now in today's world, transfer portal talent, things like that. Many things go into what that means. How their football team is on Saturday goes into it. So, you know, what kind of brand they have and things like that. And Texas is one of those schools. You know, if I were to make
Gary told me go where they have a successful football team.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. So, you know, I'd put Texas as one of those. You know, if I were to list 10 programs that I think could or should vie for a top 3 team title every year, Texas would be one of those. You know, great facilities, great weather. I think that also plays into it, specifically for your specific events. And then again, you know, the brand of tech. You know, Texas, that Longhorn is one of the brands that I see no matter where I travel in this country. I will see, I'll see an Alabama A, which always blows me away since I'm from Alabama, and a Longhorn is Seattle, Miami, New York, LA. I'll see it everywhere, not just in the region of Texas. So a lot of benefits, a lot of advantages they have there in Austin with that program. And certainly Flo has, you know, I love him to death. And if you're listening, Flo, you know, I've tried to get you on this I want you on this podcast, but man, we got to learn your journey as well. But so what was it like? What, you know, you come from U of I. I'm not putting down U of I. I love our home university here. My wife is a Illinois alum. Love that university. But the budgets aren't the same. The facilities aren't the same. The weather is not the same. What's it like going into Austin and having the Longhorn brand behind you as a track and field coach?
It was resources wise, second to none.
Yeah.
The ability to recruit, second to none. American athletes, top American athletes. I could talk to every one of them.
Right.
A lot of athletes that I didn't sign told me specifically, I'm not coming to Illinois, it's too cold, or it's not like a power program, and I'd lose them. I would not lose those athletes at Texas. The kind, I mean, I had Ashley Spencer, Illinois. I had Morlakea Kennison, so I can't say I didn't have talent,
yeah, absolutely.
The multitude of talent, second to none.
Yeah.
I was miserable for 5 years, emotionally. So, personally, I was. So that's my Texas story.
Okay, if I ask why, family,
we don't have that much time.
Sure. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
We don't have that much time.
So walk us through
the great Brooks Johnson told me, you've had a head coach he's like, this is great. This is great for you because you know how to do it and you know how not to do it. You have a head coach that shows you how to do it, and you got one to show you how not to do it.
Gotcha. I'm with it. Okay.
And then that way, and that's a life lesson.
Yeah, got it. So okay to transition into post-Texas life then, because you know the story doesn't stop there. There's the good news. Did you? So it's a quick yes or no question that can help me set up the next question. Did you go straight into the having your own group?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I ended up going from. I was at the camp that I was having my camp at Texas, and I could hear. I actually heard. Edric's son's voice, because I know his voice, and that's how I knew they were there. And I was still running my camp.
Oh, okay.
And so I was like, wait. And then they told me, they said, hey, you can't use the track. You're done. The new coach is here. So I had my 3 athletes, 3 pros. I had to figure out where to train at. So thankfully, D2, y'all know D2.
Yeah.
He called me up and he said, hey, I have a track down here if you want to come down here. So I was actually doing the camp during the day and going up north to train those three.
Wow.
So I said, no, I'm just done with the college thing.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I'm just going to try this out and see. Because I always, when I was young, I wanted to have a club, a youth
Mm.
team. I
Mm.
always wanted to have a youth club team.
Right.
And so I was like, well, maybe let me just do it on the elite level for now and just see
Yeah.
how it goes. So even that year, I had, so when I was at, I, let me just preface this by saying, I didn't do anything wrong. I just didn't get the job.
Yeah. Right.
And
Correct.
they
Yeah.
wanted to transition from me to, and Edric and I aren't friends. So I think that's why they just didn't want, in their defense, they just didn't want a conflict. So I had to go, right?
Sure.
That's
Sure.
totally fine.
Yeah.
Because I had heard a lot of stories that just aren't true about me getting paid when I wasn't there, which is stupid. If you have to
Right.
have common sense to know there's no way Texas is gonna pay me to not work. Come on.
Right.
If
Right.
anything, they had me there rolling forks or something. I'm doing something if I'm getting paid,
Right. Yeah.
right?
That's right.
But we get to USA's, and I even had other athletes kind of asking, like, you know, could they come to my group? And I'm like, no, because right now I don't even know what I'm doing.
Right.
Like, I literally don't have a track. I don't have hurdles. I don't have blocks. I don't have a
Right.
whistle. I don't have cones. All the things that I had so much access to that just came naturally that
Right.
I didn't realize I didn't have until I didn't have it. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't even know if I'm going to be successful at this with the three that I have that I'm
Right.
responsible for. So the last thing that I want to do is bring on something that I don't know if I can handle. And I have to say, the loyalty of them,
Mm.
Ashley Spencer, Mordecai Kennison, and Courtney Okolo,
Okay. I
to
can think of the
ride
third. Yeah.
with me,
Hmm.
to ride with me
Right.
in their UT alums. They
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
access, I'm pretty sure if they wanted to, they would have had access to if they had just separated themselves from me. And they didn't do that, right? So that's a certain loyalty right there too,
Yeah.
that I have to give them credit for. But I didn't want to put and add any more to that, not knowing what this was even gonna be.
Yeah.
So the first person that I went and talked to when I was at the USA Championships was Dennis Mitchell.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, Dennis, you doing this pro thing. What you think? What you think? I mean, is it hard?
Yeah.
Just asking him general questions about what do you do for health insurance? And which
Right.
doesn't exist and still doesn't exist.
Yep.
Um, just trying to get some feedback. And now, mind you, this is the NCAA meet is over. We're at the USA Championships. And I know I don't have the job at this point. And so I'm just kind of knowing that I'm in my mind going to transition. So I was just kind of asking, and I was like, I'm just going to try it for a year and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And all three of them made the world championship team. and Doha. All three of them made the Doha team. And Morlake was coming back from a ruptured Achilles too.
Holy cow.
It was crazy. Yeah. So so then I said, you know what? I think I got this. I can make this work. And so that's when I started really growing and adding more people and stuff like that. And I started my track club, and
that's what fascinates me. If someone, like, we had a great experience a year or two ago now. I had a college athlete, a senior, reach out to me saying, "Hey, I want to become a college track coach. I've listened to your podcast. Can we just have a chat?" And me, I'm always looking for content. I was like, because I'm thinking like in the future, I was like, yeah, cool. Only if we can record this conversation. Like, I want to be able to like timestamp this 22-year-old college senior, and then 10 years from now, when he's the head coach of whatever, like I kind of want to do that. But when we talk about a kid like that who wants to become a track coach, like, that's a easy conversation to have. Like, oh, apply for jobs, maybe go to the USTFCA convention and network and things like that. My head can't wrap around how you go from all the support you have as a college or high school coach. Like, I think about these kids that go pro early for track, and it's like, dude, you just lost your, depending on your school, your massage therapist, the person who schedules your meets, by the way, you've lost that. You've lost your transportation being paid for. You lost your shoes that you get. Like, you've got to figure all that stuff out now. And the same is for the coach. You're gonna start a pro group. That's cool. You don't get to just call up high schools and recruit kids anymore. That's what you did in college. You don't like, how do you create this? That is amazing
Mike,
to me.
I called you. I was like, Mike, I don't have any
Yes, I
hurdles.
remember that. Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't have
yeah.
hurdles. I don't have blocks. I don't have a tape measure. I don't have a wheel. I don't have cones. Like
Was,
I didn't have anything.
as you're building this out, was there any fear of like, oh, did I mess up here?
No, you know what? I'm my strongest when my back is up against the wall. When
Mm,
I'm cornered, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm ready to rock and roll. So no, I was like pretty determined to make sure, because at the time it was those three. I was pretty determined to make sure those three was going to be successful.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, I had to make comment. You mentioned that those three stuck with you. That says a lot about you, by the way. Them as well. Loyalty is a character trait in my opinion.
It is, yes.
But you can't be loyal to bad things. And so
Yeah,
you
exactly. Yeah.
obviously had a great leadership and relationship with them, and they obviously believed in you to take them where they wanted to go for their
Yeah.
career to
Two
stay with you.
people can't
So
be loyal to each other if they're not both all in.
that's
So
right.
you don't
That's
get
right.
the same amount of
Yeah.
credit, is what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that. And I just think it says a lot about you. And they had options. They were good athletes, so they
They
could have.
had our
Yeah.
many
So
options.
I love that. So build us through how you built this up, because now, I mean, you're full fledged. I mean, obviously with Gabby and other people, like you're producing medals on a yearly basis. Like, how have you maintained that? How have you built it? How have you grown it?
Like I told you, I have a lot of really great leadership traits that I've learned along the way. I have a certain way of doing things, and I don't tolerate certain things. And if it's not working, I just cut it right off right away so that it doesn't fester.
Mm,
And I didn't do that in the beginning. I learned a lot as a pro coach. You
right.
know, I learned a lot of things that's different from the college scene. And yeah, I think the biggest thing I learned is that the athletes are professionals and they need to behave like professionals.
Mm,
And the moment that that isn't going in that way, that I need to cut it off. Because here's the thing, you still think about the athlete as we're going through this process, and you don't want to ever interrupt their process no matter what. So for
mm,
example, we started this conversation by saying how important the major US championships are. So whether
mm.
it's a world championship trials or the Olympic trials or whatever like that. So if you have an athlete that's crashing out a month before or 2 months before, you're still thinking, I need to, because see, they don't realize that they sabotaging themselves. And so I'm like, I need to try to save you.
Mm.
Okay. My only way to save you is to accommodate with your foolishness for the next couple of months. Right. Um, I ain't doing that no more.
Mm,
I'm gonna let you go on and crash out on your own,
mm.
right? Because what happens is that they end up inadvertently affecting people around, the other people around who are getting ready for a major championship, right?
Right. Right.
And so you don't think of it that way because you're in this bubble of you and that athlete trying to make it work, and you don't understand what's happening with everybody else around you. So that's just not so, because again, they've picked their lives up, they've moved to your city, they
Right.
so act professional.
Yeah.
That's
Dennis,
not my job to worry about. If you're working at a Fortune 500 company and you need to be fired, they're not going to worry that your child is in a school
that's right.
in this town or whatever.
That's right.
It's time for you to go.
Yeah.
So that's this is professional. This is professional track and field.
We had Dennis Mitchell, good friend on the show as well, and he mentioned that about like you have to be careful in your recruitment because one person can
Right.
come in and spoil the whole thing.
That's right.
When you look at all the things, when we talk about a head coach of a college, there's scheduling, there's budgeting, there's equipment, there's obviously recruiting. You may be on panels to help hire the basketball coach. There's all these responsibilities in elements when you're running your own club. You still have a lot of these things: scheduling, recruitment of athletes, things like that. What's the hardest part? Like, is it facilities? Is it trying to find the next kid or two that you're going to invite into the group? Is it taking care of the ones that are in front of you? What's the hardest part? What's the biggest struggle of being a
Yes.
professional coach?
So I try to be real chill so that way I don't make that like, so what I do is I actually text my group daily.
Hmm.
So I will text them the night before to say, here's where we're at and what time.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I already know, I may know 2 days in advance. Just we're
Mm-hmm.
gonna do Wednesday. But I want, because I also want them to be on that schedule too, that anything can change at any moment.
Right.
Right? It could change with my day, because I have other things going on in my life. I can work around what they got going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and that way we all kind of make, every now and then I'll forget and be like, Coach, what time is practice tomorrow? You forgot. That's rare, but I do it every single day. And it's not
Mm-hmm.
at the same time every day. It's when I think about it. Right.
Right.
But that's a routine that they understand. So it's cool.
Yeah.
Because I was able to rearrange things today because I'm doing this with you.
Right. Thank you.
So we just make it chill like that. Then
Yeah.
it's all good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So when you're talking about scheduling, what about like you have other influences? These guys and gals have agents. They have media responsibilities. And ultimately, if they go do all these media things and all this other stuff and don't make teams, you're the one that people look at. They don't go,
oh no
oh,
no
you
no
had to
no
go
no
do.
no yeah okay no we make that work. So we actually y'all wouldn't even imagine the stuff that we went through last year with Gabby doing
Sure.
that
Yeah.
prior on the run up to the Olympics. But I had learned lessons not from myself because I was not that big of an athlete, but just from hearing of other athletes who were the face, let's say, of the Olympics and
Right.
what.
Right.
So what we did was we put together a schedule. She and I sat down together and pulled up the calendar. I printed it out a calendar with the months on it, and we wrote in, tell me all your events coming up. And then we had to make a deadline for it all stops this day. So for example, we had to get her to run an open quarter, even though she ran the quarter at or 4x4 at the World Relays, because we were just continuing to trying to put her in a position where there was no discussion about this 4x4 thing, right?
Right.
So she was going to run it at the trials, and then she needed a mark. So it was like this day. So the LSU meet, that's it. Can't do anything between then and the trials.
Mm.
And then there was this big thing she had to do that week. So she literally did this event and flew to Louisiana, Baton Rouge from
Huh.
there after standing on her feet. So it wasn't even the mark you expect to get because she had all this stuff going on around it,
Right.
but it was just we needed a mark, right? That's
Yeah.
why we say we don't take ourselves too seriously during the year because no
Right.
one else knows
Right.
why you're doing what you're doing or how you even got to this point. All
Right.
you see is a time.
Yep. Yep.
And you try to make all these judgments off of this one
It's the
time.
greatest thing of our sport and also the
And it's
worst
the
part of
worst
our
thing.
sport.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly
Yeah, you
right.
don't know how we got to this point or why
Yeah.
we're here at this point or why even, well, if you're that busy and you're that preoccupied and you miss that much training, why even go to LSU and put on the track?
Right.
Well, we got to get a mark.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And guess what? You have to get a mark early enough that if that mark doesn't work out, you have to have a backup, right? You can't just rely on that race to be
Right.
the race because in your mind it was going to be perfect. But then guess what? A big storm came through and the meet got canceled.
Right.
Or
Oh,
your
yeah.
flight got canceled, or you were warming up and felt something in your hammy and couldn't, you don't know. So now you have to make it where we have all this other stuff planned. We got to make sure we get this quarter in, but you also have these other meets that's planned where you can't run the quarter.
Right.
So now are we running around trying to find, so you got to do it early enough where if you have to find another race to get a quarter in, you got that time, right?
Yeah.
You can't wait till this the last minute and you have no other opportunities.
Right.
So those are schedules that I put together, but I know the sport so well at this point that I can kind of figure out how to manage it with no
Yeah.
problem. And I'm cool with all of the agents. I have all that my athletes agents. I'm real cool with them. Most of them I even knew, the Mark Blocks of the world. I knew them when I was running.
That's a good point. Yeah. That's a good point.
So.
So this may bleed right into, and this will be our last question here as we wrap up. Again, thank you so much for your time. Tell all the athletes, Gabby and them, I'm sorry that I interrupted
That's all
coach
right.
being
This
at
is this is our
practice.
active recovery day today.
um, let's talk a little bit about sprint. I love the exposure our sports getting. Those kind of things, like when you think about media days and stuff like Gabby might have to have with New Balance and stuff, those are interruptions. Like I assume you would rather I just have practice every time and day that I want,
Right.
right?
Right.
Having a camera crew and such come into practice and at the houses for the interviews and things like that, those are disruptions. What was that like? That's a fairly unique thing, I would assume, for you, that big budget production Netflix type thing comes in and has demands and requests from you. How did that all, was it cool or was it not cool?
She handles it very well. As you know, I wasn't in Sprint that much, either
Right.
one of them.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
that's because I think they could tell I didn't really want to be.
Sure. Yeah.
They weren't paying me, so I'm
Yeah,
like,
right. Yeah, that's
so
right.
I'm too old to make social media work for me where I'm gonna be. Yeah, I just didn't see the value in it for me, and so I
Yeah.
just kind of.
But you still had to, as the coach, had to work around. Like
Yeah,
I assume
no,
that
I
you had
definitely had to. I
you had
definitely.
some rep for Gabby, and then they were like, "Hey, can we get her out of the blocks again?"
Oh, I
And you're
got
like,
you.
"Dude,
Yeah,
I
no, they actually didn't ever do that because
oh,
oh, there was no fake when I was around in terms of
okay,
like, can we do that rep again? No, no,
yeah,
no,
yeah,
no.
okay,
But yeah, just having their presence there
hmm
all the time was a bit of a
yeah,
distraction.
right,
But yeah, I mean, she's real chill about it, so it worked.
yeah."
Yeah, I
Did
was just
did you
kind of
feel
like,
like you had to be guarded because cameras are on?
oh yeah, because I gotta, I'm serious about probably shouldn't be.
What rating are you going for here, Netflix? Let me know that.
And I'm just like, well, there was a lot of times where I would really say, they would ask, come over and say, can I mic you? And I'd be like, no.
Yeah, I love these mic ups that they do. Like usually it's a lot of NFL coaches, but they've done it a couple with track coaches, and I'm like, oh, we need to do more of that. And then I'm like, I don't know that I would ever do that. I
For
don't know
the
if I trust
final,
myself.
for the final of the trials, I was like, no, I just don't
Hmm.
want to be like, I don't want to be bothered today.
Right.
We need to, because the more I mic, the more they're going to be around us.
Right.
If somebody else is mic, they're going to spend more time with them because they got audio.
Right.
So
Good
I'm
point.
like, not this final.
Yeah.
We got to get through this final. And
Yeah.
I think I said like come on the prelim or the semi or something, and then after the semi, it's a wrap.
Right.
I mean, of course they're gonna be there with the cameras, but
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
being mic'd up and trying to get through that final, no.
Yeah. Do you have any insider info? Is there a Sprint 3 coming out or?
There, I don't know anything about Sprint 3.
Okay.
I just know there's a lot of film
Sure.
that is on the chopping room floor that was
Yeah.
never
Yeah.
TV.
Cool. I love that. I love our sport getting any more media. I love that. For me, I'm always been, I told you this before well, maybe it was on recording. I don't know. Anyway, I love, like, my favorite parts of sprint. It was great seeing Gabby and Noah and Grant. I love well, actually Grant, with those guys and gals. That's so cool. I love that. And I see that already when I watch the trials and Olympics and stuff like that. I don't get to see the people that I think are the most important. And sure, you can flame me all you want. I don't care. I know the athletes are great and that's cool, but it's the coaches for me. And so, seeing Lance and Dennis and
Yeah.
you and
Yeah.
Michelle, it was really the far nose. It was just, that was cool to me because it's like, I think of you guys as superheroes. So it's like, oh, they're getting their due. And I
And
just
this
remember,
one I mean, they show Edric, which I don't know if a lot of
yes,
people
that's
that would
right.
have been
Yeah.
outside of that knows, him
Great
and
point. I texted
the job that
him.
he did with Julian. He did a
Yep.
great job with Julian. And
I texted
but
him
yeah,
after I
just
watched that
seeing
show and
some of
Lance
those
and
different
yeah,
coaches. Yeah.
exactly right. I just really, really love that. So I love that. I hope more comes from that. And I hope they do, I've not, people have said that they would like this. I've not heard that they're actually going to do this, but I'd love a throws and for me, because the hurdles, I'd love a hurdles. That'd be my personal favorite. I'd love to see all that. And there's some obviously
Yeah.
great athletes there, but Tanja, thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
It is always humbling. I know how busy coaches are at any point in the time of the year, but I know, the demands of you from to people you coach and the things that you do with your own family and stuff like that. Your time is so valuable to me. So I'm just so grateful, to sit down and share that time with us and share your journey through this great profession. I'm really grateful for
Thank
you.
you so much. I got to go back and watch some of the other videos of people you mentioned.
Yeah, I tell
Got to
you,
dive deep into it.
it's the Brooks Johnson, I tell you, he thought differently. You know this from experience, and um, like I said, as a non-coach, when I interviewed him, it changed my life. It helped me to judge people less, to be real frank with you. And that's funny for people who think they know a Brooks who don't actually know him, would maybe think that that's a preposterous statement to make about him. Bro, go back and go listen to his interview. I'm so proud that I was able to get his story on wax before he passed. That's a
Yes,
library treasure that, there's going to be coaches 20 years from now that are going to be able to know his story and his journey a little bit through
absolutely.
that. And
That's
so I'm
wonderful.
grateful for that. And same with
That is
Mouse
wonderful.
and Karen. So, and now you are now officially on wax in the library. People a long time from now will be able to find out your journey and really amazing. I tell you, I think back, I like to think of a theme of people's journeys. And if I had to put like one word to your journey, I would call it consistency. I mean, it's amazing the longevity of your career. And you can basically say, I had two coaches. I mean, that's unheard of. I mean, literally unheard of. There's people who have more than two coaches their freshman year.
In a year.
That's what I'm saying. Uh, so I love the
Yeah.
consistency. I love what you're doing with your athletes and consistency. Ashley Spencer has had a heck of a career with you for a long time now. It seems that makes me feel old because it feels like she was just in high school. I remember exactly where she was in high school. So I just love that consistency in your marriage. Would you say 29 years? You're almost on 30.
9 years.
Love that.
Mhm.
That again, consistency, man. So I just appreciate you modeling that and showing that leadership and that very important characteristic in consistency. So thank you so much, Tanja. I'm so grateful for this time.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Guys, thank you for being here. Like I said, go back. One of the things as we get near, we're in season 6, we're getting near to episode 300. I love the new people that we have. Having Tanja right here, this is awesome way to kick off season 6. But my fear is there are 200 and something other amazing coaches that we've had on the show, and you need to be able to see them and listen to them. So Brooks and Mouse and Karen, our top like 5, if I remember off the top of my head: Boo Schexnayder, Diljit Taylor, Lateef Thomas, another rest in peace there. Dave Smith at Oklahoma State is up in the top 5, top 10. There's just so many amazing guys and
Have
gals
you
out
done
there.
Amy Dean?
Amy Deem is a podcast
I
alum.
was gonna say
Absolutely.
because she's been she just had a birthday this
That's
weekend and
right.
we were
Yep.
talking, and someone said, isn't she in her 40s or early 40s? And I was like,
Hmm.
wait, what? Wait, Amy was coaching when I was in college, but she was like 20.
Yeah. We
But
learned.
She's been coaching for a long time.
I pigeonhole people. So for Mouse, it's like, oh, he's from Florida. And then you learn, no, he's from Columbus. Like, that's amazing to me. Amy Deem, I just think, oh, Miami, she's from Florida, West Virginia girl. I mean, just, you learn so much about these coaches and their backgrounds. And it's really special to see the men and women who choose to be track coaches, special people that do special things for young people. And that's the whole goal. So Tanja, thank you so much. Guys and gals, thank you so much for listening. Join us next week. We'll do it all over again as we go into season 6. We're 6 years old. So continue along with us. I got some great people coming up for you. We're going to have a lot of fun. So we'll talk soon. See you guys.
Thanks.